Welcome back to another New World video. This time on the Ultimate Guide series, we're going to go through the brand new dungeon, which has literally just come out in this past week or two on New World. It's the Barnacles and Black Powder. It mostly features lost enemies, which is a little bit different. We've not had one like that before. We're going to go through everything just like the other guide videos. We've done Genesis, we've done Lazarus, we've done a bunch of the other arenas and all that kind of stuff. We've done Tempest as well. And this time, for any players who are brand new, level 60 doing this dungeon, or returning players or anything like that, we've got the perfect guide for you. I'm hopefully going to show you everything you need to know. If I miss anything, comment section down below. I'm hoping I shouldn't. And then if you like this video when you come to the end of it, you can hit up my Twitch. It's where we stream live stream New World almost every single day, so check me out there. And then obviously if you like the videos, drop a sub, likes on the videos, all that kind of normal stuff. But let's get straight into it. Okay, let's start off. Before you go into the dungeon, you want to pick up your faction missions and the prerequisite quests, just so then you can be completing some extra stuff while you're in there. Obviously, I'm with Syndicate, so I'll go straight over to the Syndicate faction vendor. And as you can see in here, when you open it up, you will be checking the PvE ones, which is the top 3. You want to be checking any that say expedition in brackets. If they don't, just open them, accept the quest, and then cancel it, and you can wait to respawn some more. You want to try and pick up a few of these if you can. You just get some bonus faction points and some coin and stuff like that. Okay, and then the first prerequisite quest will come from Rowan Penbrook. So make sure you pick up this mission. Some little things to do inside the dungeon. You want your faction missions, and then this mission. Right, once you get over to outside of the dungeon in Cutlass Keys, it's towards the bottom right of the map if you've not seen it. Quigley Quaros, who I cannot pronounce, they have a prerequisite quest for you that's a repeatable. So every time you do this dungeon, make sure you pick up that. You get like a gypsum orb and a crash weapon chest. And then in here, the final one you want to pick up is Wally Widdershins. They'll be the 3 or is that 4 prerequisite quests you can pick up. So you got the faction vendor in Cutlass Keys. Next to that, you got 1 mission to pick up. And then here outside, you got the repeatable. And then you got the one from Wally. So 4 different quests or types of quests that you can pick up before you go into the dungeon. Right, before we go into the dungeon, you want to know what kind of sort of mobs you're going to come up against, so you know what kind of weapons to take in with you, and any sort of like ward gear and stuff like that. So I don't know the exact percentage, but I'd probably say like 80 to 90% of the mobs that are inside of this dungeon are all the lost. Okay, so if you're taking any slash weapons, fire weapons, lightning weapons, or arcane weapons, they're fine. You'll just do your normal base damage as usual. If you're going to take any thrust weapons or void weapons, so your void gauntlet, your spears and your muskets and all that kind of stuff and bows, you'll actually do a lot less damage in there. Now you can sort of mitigate this by on your bows, for example, or on your spears. You know, you could have like Lost Bane, which will then increase the percentage, or you can add the gems we're going to go through in a minute. Strike damage, ice damage, and nature is the best to take in here. So any ice gauntlet users, you'll be really good in here. Healers with the life staff, you'll do a little bit of extra damage, and in general you'll do a lot, but with the 30% boost, you'll be doing a decent amount of damage. And strike damage, similar to when you're doing like Lazarus and stuff, you want to take your Warhammers in there, you'll do a lot of damage. The perfect kind of weapons would be obviously your ice gauntlet if you're taking in a mage. If your mage is obviously using fire and ice, if they slotted like an ice gem or even an amber gem, which would be even better, in the fire staff, and in the ice gauntlet, that way you'll be doing all that bonus nature damage. Warhammers, taking them in there as well. If you can put some nature gems in there, that'll be pretty good. Obviously, if you've got any Lost Bane on your weapons, they're the best as well, because they'll increase your damage. If you like trying to do this dungeon and you're trying to like sort of min-max it, and you see people trying to come in there with like void gauntlets and other than healers who can kind of use void gauntlets as secondary because they're not going to be trying to do any damage. Any damage dealers out there, if you're trying to use void gauntlets or if you're trying to use all thrust weapons, this isn't really the dungeon for you. But again, if you use the Lost Bane, if you use the amber gems and stuff like that, you can mitigate a bit of that damage, so you're doing a bit more. But all in all, you're not going to be smashing it. And then obviously, like I said, about, I don't know the exact percentage, 80-90% or whatever, are all lost. You do have a couple of angry earth mobs in there, and you have a couple of beasts in there as well. There's a lot of alligators in there. The angry earth, you got the tendrils and stuff. Now I wouldn't recommend switching all your gear just to fight some tendrils or just to fight the crocodiles, you know what I mean, the alligators. You don't need to do that, but just be aware there are some in there. If you've got any like ward gear or whatever, it's you don't need it for this dungeon. And then the final thing you can do, if you think you're not going to be doing a lot of damage in general, you could add the lost coatings to your weapons. That'll obviously boost your damage. You could add the lost trophies in your houses as well. If you got up to 3 different houses, I think even with the basic trophies. I think you can get up to 12% added damage if you had one in each of your houses. So lost coatings, lost trophies if you wish. You can use your honing stones. Again, this is a bit overkill if I'm being completely honest. You know, stacking all your weapons with the nature gems as well. You should be, and if you've got any lost bane weapons, you're going to be doing plenty of damage in this dungeon. I don't think you're going to need to min-max this one, especially on normal mode. All in all, it's a fairly easy dungeon. The last thing I'll mention is I have searched everywhere. I've been in multiple streams, including all the bigger streamers with the thousands of views, right? I've checked the forums. Now, I've not seen anything so far at the point of recording this video. Again, comment section down below if you found this info now. I've not seen anything where it actually tells you the recommended gear score. I've heard some people say it's 600. I'm going to call bollocks, right? No way. I've seen people go into this dungeon, fresh level 60, like 480, 490, 500, 510 gear score. Really low gear score for end game. And then just walk all the way through the dungeon. As long as you play your class right and you're not just taking hits for the sake of it. I've took plenty of people in this dungeon as well. I've 625'd it as a tank. And I took a bunch of people all in the low 500 gear scores, and we've been absolutely fine. So yeah, recommended gear score, so long as you're level 60 and 500 mark, you'll be absolutely fine in this dungeon. Okay, in terms of the guide, then let's go straight into it. With your 5-man team, you're obviously going to want a tank, you're going to want a healer, bog standard, and your 3 DPS. Ideal setup, in my opinion. Definitely you're taking a fire and an ice mage. 100% you're taking one of those. Tactically as well, that helps. And if you can get 2 people using the warhammers in there as well, with all the right gems and stuff like we just discussed, you'll definitely, you know, you'll be absolutely fine in this dungeon. So there's a lock gate when you first come into the starting bit. You need to kill all of the mobs that you can see here on screen. It's quite bog standard, there's nothing crazy going on. But once you've killed them, then as you can see down the bottom where our healer is there, you talk to the NPC, and then from that moment you need to range hit these areas here. See these little sort of door levers? You need to range hit these. That's why the dungeon tells you you need a range player. Now what we found as well is anybody with Path of Destiny, where the lever is on the other side of the doors, you can actually hit with Path of Destiny. So try that if you've got no range players, but everyone should have a healer. Now what I would advise is if you're not all 625 gear score, is pick up the first 2 groups of mobs like we've just done here. Just be a little careful because there's sort of 7 or 8 mobs there and they do start stacking. And what I stupidly didn't notice on this run that we recorded earlier on is I didn't notice I didn't eat my strength and con food. So I've gone in as a tank here and I don't have my 300 strength. The reason why I've gone 300 strength and not 300 con is at 65 gear score, I'm quite chunky for this. I shouldn't be dying in this dungeon at all. But the 300 grit is just nice to not get knocked over. I don't know how I didn't notice it because all I was thinking in my head all the way through the fight was, oh, why do I keep getting knocked down? But there's a mini boss here and then there's the black flag gunner. What I would do is try and take all of the mobs to the black flag gunner, because then that way because he's ranged, yeah, you'll do most damage. There's the lever that we spoke about. It's on the other side of the door. Again, it's quite simple. Once you kill all the mobs, your range player, or if you've got Path of Destiny on the warhammer, you can ping that from there. Now a couple of mobs here in the background, you'll see like the lightning sort of mob, which we'll go over to now. And I'd advise to pull over here the shamans. These are one of the new types of mobs that they've added to the game. I'd pull them all over to the shaman because he actually does a decent amount of lightning damage from the players. And if the tank, if you don't pick him up, and he starts picking off the healer or some of the lighter DPS players, can be a bit of a problem. So I'd, yeah, pull them all over here. All the AoE damage you possibly can. As a tank, you know, I'm switching to my warhammer as much as I can to help out with the DPS. I would like to notice as well, it's myself and obviously this is who plays the healer. So we're both 625. We've got 3 randomers from the Barry server just to join us. I don't know the setups. I don't know their gear scores. I'm going to presume, since they replied to my open message saying we're doing a normal Barnacles run, I'm going to imagine they're nowhere near 625 because they're the only kind of people who reply to normal runs. Kill the mobs, pick up the chest. Watch out for the swinging axe. Don't worry, it's not going to one-hit you if you run into it. It'll do about 1/3 of your damage. Sorry, of your health. Now, this bar here, as you see, you just heard the explosion. If you time it right, the bombers will run ahead of you. Now, these are the only things, pretty much bar the biggest bosses in this game, in this dungeon, sorry, that'll actually down you. The best strat for it, what we found is, what we've timed it best, especially mutators. There you go, 2 deaths. Is the tank runs in with the Sundering Shockwave. You shockwave them once, then your DPS players, if they've got the gravity wells on the axes, they can then ping them in. And then when they're stuck in the grav wells and they start to ignite and they start to run towards you, your healer or your mage can use the ice shower, I think that skill's called, and they'll get stuck in that and just explode. That's the best thing to know here. Now you've got a couple of mobs up at the top. Again, if you're not quite you know, if you're early level 60, I wouldn't pull all the ones upstairs as well. If you've got a full team of over 600, you can pull both groups. For these now, I just pull all the ones that are in this area. You'll only be taking damage from one random sort of ranged attack there, which you should be fine with. These are all standard mobs, nothing crazy, nothing going on. But then, as you can see, we started to pull the ones from upstairs. So grab those, take all those out. But again, so far, nothing crazy when it comes to strats. You've got all your lost gear. You know, we should be flying through these sort of mobs. But the reason why I chose to record this one is I obviously wanted a solid healer with us, and not like a random healer, just so then we weren't getting wiped for no reason. But I wanted to take 3 randomers who from like the Barry Global chat, who were probably fairly new to level 60, or you know, around 600 gear score or lower. Just show you then like how kind of easy this dungeon is. I'd say of all of the dungeons in this game at level 60, this is definitely the easiest. And I think every streamer, every content creator, I think they all agree, really, really easy. You drop down here, you've got the waypoint there, so you can tag that. Now, what I'd advise here is to just stand where I've marked here. Just stand and wait for the mobs to come to you. You've got around the different area. You've got alligators all in the pens, so you can wait for them to come to you. You've got a couple of mobs who will also sort of just run at you from range, and then there's 2 doors in the background. You just need to keep an eye out, especially as like, well, to be fair, anyone, but the tank definitely. Keep an eye out when those doors open and some of the bombers start to run in. There's a lot of mobs here, so also as a tank as well, anybody playing tank, save some of your taunts, because you can see the mobs kind of come out slowly. If you spam all your taunts at the start, sure, you'll grab all the aggro, but then there'll be 3 or 4 mobs that you don't, and then you've got to go around to get them, like we've had to do a few times here. So definitely time all of your taunts. And just keep an eye out. There will be an audio trigger when the door opens and then the bombers start to run in. That's when, again, in my opinion, tank goes first and uses shockwave. Any melee DPS players who have got an axe would use Gravwell, and the final, and then basically everybody else, once you've used your skill, you just move away and you can kite them, and then you can use the ice shower last. You can see I didn't have my timed skill, you know, with the shockwave, so try to shockwave from there with ice, and all you gotta do basically is just move away. Once you've hit them a couple of times and they've ignited, they'll just stand still and explode. They will chase you a little bit, so just beware for that. Like I said, they'll just kill you. Even if you've got really good gear on, they will just down you. As a tank, you can block one of them. If 2 of them explode near you as a tank, even with full shield, that's when they start to take you down. We've got chompers here, the alligator. This is where some people I've seen on mutators, they switch to beast ward gear, sorry, and beast bane gear, and I'm like, that's just massively overkill. You know what I mean? It really, really is. Once you've killed all the mobs here, the mini boss, the master at arms, he'll pop down. You've seen this mob type quite a few times. He's the big heavy hitting electrified lost guy, and a bunch of more mobs will come in, but again, they'll all come to you. So long as the healer isn't picking up random aggro, because they're already healing before the mobs come in, before you get a chance to hit them, you should be fine. They don't do, there's a couple of ranged ones in there as well, but they don't do great damage. It's all okay. Best strat as always, clump them all up with grab wells or whatever you possibly got to pull them all in, and then just AoE them, and you should be absolutely fine. Chest will unlock once you've killed that final few mobs. And then there's 2 doors. We're going to head to the door straight on, as you can see here. Oh, sorry, slightly left. 2 more bombers. So 3 more bombers. There we go. They come through the doors. So make sure you... Now, one thing you can do, if you're really, really fast with the DPS, you can kill these straight away. And then if you kill them really, really fast and they don't ignite, they won't explode. So you can do it that way. But what we found is it gets a bit hectic, especially in the mutators. It gets a bit hectic. People panic a little bit. And then, the best thing is to just basically stun them, slow them down, and just kite them away, and nobody's going to die. But if you do have insane DPS, just kill them straight away. They won't blow up. So when you walk over to this sort of corrupted treasure, which you don't get anything from, it's just like a debuff when you walk near it. You'll get 1 ghost spawn when you walk through this door, and then you'll get another black flag gunner as well. You'll take those 2 out, and you'll get 1 more. So basically, don't run all the way through this to the end, because then you'll pull too many mobs when you get to the top. Another ghost here, take them out. The only thing I advise is, if you think you're taking a lot of damage from these sort of ghost mobs, just use your gemstone dust. As you can see, I've got it in slot, what is it, slot 6, I think. Use your gemstone dust. Now, in this room, left and right, you got 2 bombers. Best thing I would suggest to do is, tank goes in, lures them all in, throw your grav wells in, throw your ice storm in, and everybody run back just until they explode, and then that should be fine. But again, with these videos, I'm not showing you like a perfectly demonstrated run, because I feel like One, it's always hard to record the perfect run. You could do it 3 or 4 times before you get a perfect run. But when we're showing these guide videos on YouTube, the point is to show you some bits that go wrong and some bits that go really well, so then you can see it. Big thing to pick up here, this toolbox here, you need to click on that. Okay, if you don't take the toolbox, when you run to another door later on, you won't be able to get through. So make sure you pick up the toolbox. Only one player needs to pick it up. Everybody can pick it up, but only one player needs it. You're back here, and this is your first Angry Earth mob, I think, in the whole dungeon. First one. Straight on the tendrils, as always. Stamina damage. So just do as many heavy attacks as you can to take them down and move through the door. Now, this is where the door towards the left-hand side as we go through now. That's going to open. There's going to be, I think, another 3 bombers, possibly 2. One thing to note, though, is if you can group them and clump them in a perfect way, the bombers actually damage the other, obviously the mobs that are around them. So if you can get them to explode near the other mobs there, they actually do damage to those as well, as you can see there in the background, which is pretty handy. So if you can, there you go again. You can clump them at a perfect way. You're basically just doing 3 DPS, you know. But that's all good. Take these out when we go through this door. All the AoE moves are all working good. Again, these 3 DPS as well. I didn't even ask them for their weapons like I normally would. Didn't ask them for their gear score. Just wanted to take 3 random DPSs through just to see how we get on. Always take out the shamans first, by the way. Every time you see these shamans, these black flag shamans, these are like the new mobs like we spoke about before, the electrifying ones. So take those out. There's 3 or 4 mobs up here, and then the ghost spawns when you go near the treasure. Just bear that in mind. Again, gemstone dust if you need it. But it's fairly simple. Until you get to some of the boss fights, it's fairly simple. That's when the new good mechanics start to come into play. Just take all these out. Watching it back now, the amount of times I get knocked down is ridiculous. And only right near the end of this dungeon, you'll see it when I start eating my carrot cake. I'm like, why the hell am I... Where's all my grit? Best thing to do here with these 3 mobs is range pull them up here like I've tried to ping. But again, we're playing with 3 randomers and that message didn't quite come through. Because once you come down here, that door at the bottom of the stairs will eventually unlock and more bombers come through. So the best thing to do is if you pull these up, you won't trigger the door. You can kill them in your own time. You don't have to worry about the bombers. As you can see here now, because we've come too far down the door, bombers have released. I tried to jump down and do my bit and sort of slow them as we were already killing these mobs. It's a bit dodgy. Try and use my shield bash, I think, on one of these to ping them backwards. Yep, there you go. With the tank as well, if you use your shield bash or your shield rush, they'll also ping the mob back quite a bit. Try to not have it explode directly on you, because that's when you start getting the kills. So when we picked up that toolbox earlier on as well, we're going back into a room that we were earlier on. I think this is like a corner clone room of one of the Amrine runes, I think. But you place that there, and then all of this will explode to unlock the next part. So if you've ever got to this part of the dungeon and gone, all right, I'm stuck, what do I do? It's because you forgot the toolbox. So make sure you picked it up. Bit of platinum ore on the left-hand side if anyone needs it. Alright, now running through to this next part, there's 2 mini groups of mobs again. Now the tank sometimes forgets to do this. Hit these mobs first with an AoE, and then pull them all down here to where the shaman is on the left hand side, and then make sure all the mobs. Some tanks will not hit that first group, and then that first group of 3 mobs will all jump on the healer once the healer starts healing. And make sure you pick those up. We didn't do this the best. Again, 3 randomers in this group, all the DPSs, and we didn't use any voice comms whatsoever as well. I wasn't talking these guys through it. So there are some slightly messy parts, but again, good to see where it can go wrong and where you can do it right. But we could have pulled them all there to the shaman. That would have been better. Again, big boss again. Sword and shield, so need to do a couple of heavy attacks on to knock them back. Take out all these mobs. I'd say tank just jump on the biggest boss there, and then if all the DPS just focus on the 3 other mobs, kill them as fast as you possibly can, then all jump on the boss. Probably the easiest way to do it. Not quite how we've done it, as you can tell. And then once you kill these, go straight through to the room in the background. Now this is where one of the pieces of paper are, the lore paper on the right hand side. You won't see me pick it up because I've already got it, but on that right hand side there, make sure you pick that up if you need it. One of the first quests you pick up to come in here, you need to pick up the 3 pieces of paper. If I can remind myself as I run through here, I will as we run through this video, because I didn't specifically look for them when recording. Yeah, I'll try and point these out now. Let the tank go first here. My opinion is AoE, and then go straight into your defiant stance to reduce any damage that you're about to take. And then once they all do a couple of hits, then start doing your fortifying shield rush. And some of you were killed again and being knocked about the place. Got to go 300 strength. Such a noob tank here. I shouldn't be getting all the knocked about. But what some people make a mistake here is sometimes the healer will throw a healer in straight away, and then they'll just instantly pull aggro before the tanks have a chance. Several mobs can run for the healer, and also some DPS will run in, and if they're really good DPS players, well, this kind of goes against itself. They'll be light build to do extra damage, and then they'll go in and they'll just get bombed by like 5. So at this point, you pick up a cannonball. Any player can do this. You will then load it into here, fire at those kegs there, explodes nicely, and then it unlocks a lever, which the range player can then hit the lever from there, open the door on the other side of the ship. I don't know if this triggered the memory for anybody else, but you know the dead mines, or in World of Warcraft, that triggered me to remember that. So you got 2 more cannons inside this boss fight. This is the first biggest boss fight. There's 2 like big boss fights, and this is the first one. We have Admiral Black Powder here. So you got 2 cannons there on the outside, so you can normally designate 1 player to pick up the cannonballs during this fight. I'll show you that when we get there. Essentially, he is probably like a brute reskin, if you're wondering about most of his mechanics. But he's fairly simple to fight. You know, use your big heavy attacks on him. Do as much damage as you can. He will sprout out a couple of the I don't know what you call them, cannon fires on the floor. Watch out for those. Now, every time he jumps up on top of, like, I'll show you in another angle in a minute, but every time he jumps up, he'll spawn a handful of mobs there, and later on there'll be a bomber in there, so make sure you kill those as soon as they spawn. The kegs that are exploding around, range players can hit those. If a melee goes in, they tend to just explode on you and do a bit of burning damage, so watch out. These red lines can just be dodged through, so don't worry too much about those, but they'll come in as a slow line of cannon fire. But if you ever see them on the floor, just make sure you dodge through them. Hopefully I'll do some good demos for you. Hopefully. Yeah, a little dodge through there, maybe. There we go, and you take no damage. Later on in the fight, they'll chuck out 2 lines at the same time, which makes it a little bit more interesting. But all you want to do here, it's anywhere between 3 and 4 cannon blasts on the boss as he moves up and top on the top of the background of the arena there. Again, any player can do that. Make sure you are picking up the cannonballs. You hit the boss 3 or 4 times, or else this will just loop and loop and loop. But when he's doing his cannon fire here, especially as the tank, just shield up. It doesn't do a great amount of damage. It'll do a tiny bit of burning at most. This boss, with all his mechanics, he basically just chucks out big heavy attacks. But when he's about to do those, just block as normal. He'll chuck the kegs around again. 2 things you can do with the kegs: either just leave them, or range players can hit them. It's that simple. Again, boss has jumped up, so look, we have a new spawn here. Now on the second wave is when you start getting the bombers, so make sure you kill those bombers straight away, and then they won't actually blow up. If you leave them too long, you'll start to ignite, and then you're a bit screwed. As we're running around here, so we didn't really, again, we're doing this with randomers, so we didn't really designate certain players to do the cannon firing. Ideally, you just pick 1 player. He or she does the cannon fire, and it just makes it really, really simple. Everybody else's job, just stand in the middle and wait. You can help with refilling the cannonballs if you wish. Dodging through the red lines. Again, one thing I would say about this dungeon, even though it's not very hard, I think I actually nearly died during this run because I wasn't concentrating. Even though it's not very hard, at least the New World are now adding a lot more mechanics into the fight here. Now, I can't even count how many mechanics there are. You count the cannonballs, the red lines, then there's a double red line, there's the kegs, there's the boss fight himself with his manual attacks. He then does, I think, 2 different types of cannon fire skills. One of them is here now, and the best thing to do when you see this one where there's loads of incinerating circles as a tank, just stand in it. All the other players can just dodge out the way. Tank just stand. What I've noticed is when I move around in those incinerating circles, they just keep spawning. I just tend to stand still there. What are we up to? We're up to 7 or 8, I think. We're up to 8 now. All these different like mechanics that are in this sole little fight here. And if you get the mobs spawning in, and with, I don't know, there's maybe like 8 or 9 possibly different like individual mechanics that are in this boss fight, which is a lot more, even though it's not very hard, a lot more interesting compared to some other boss fights. If you imagine the final Lazarus fight, there's not a lot going on there, you know. Again, here we go. A couple more mobs spawn. We want to get rid of the, as you can see, there's 2 lines now, right? You see the 2 lines? This is where one will go from left to right, one will go from north to south, and east to west. That's probably the best way to describe it. This is where you just need to watch out if you want to start dodging at one side, saving your stamina, and dodging through the other side. If you're a light, you can just roll once and you'll go all the way through it. As you can see, we did this with a couple of randomers, and this is where I actually nearly died, and I was like, oh my god, am I gonna die on this recording? So basically, I've done this dungeon a handful of times. I'm like, I'm not recording this anymore. You know what I mean? We're gonna go with this one, so if I die, oh, how embarrassing. But no, we saved it. A couple of the guys died basically just because they didn't pot up, and obviously they weren't starting any heals while they were trying to do the cannon fire. Bosses jump back down, and then this will be the final wave. This should, unless your DPS is incredibly slow, which I've never experienced yet, there should be 3 waves of what the boss jumps up, and you have to cannon fire him. Okay, 3 different waves of that. On this final wave, once he's come down, it's basically just DPS him until the end. He'll chuck out cannons. Sorry, not cannons. He'll chuck out kegs. Don't stand near them. That's an obvious mechanic. You know, you can see this sort of self-explanatory. This part here, again, I'm just going to stand still. And if you move around, shield isn't protecting you. As you can see, the ticks only do 357. So, you know what I mean? It doesn't do a lot of damage there. And again, one thing to notice as well, I have 0 Lost Ward gear. Okay, I'm currently grinding for it at the minute because I accidentally deleted a bunch because it was all purple. And then I realized, you know what? I best just take it. So the brined gear, I think, is what I'm after at the moment. Once you complete that boss, you should get some drops, and then you've also got the chest as well. Now, in this room, I need to explain something. You got one more on the left-hand side of this rock here. See it there? Just appearing. That's your second piece of lore paper. That guy's picking it up. There you go. So make sure that's the second out of 3 pieces of lore paper that you need for the quest. In this room here, it's like a long sort of rectangle room. 3 different ghosts should spawn. Now, I just wanted to point this out, right? Because on this run, I don't know whether we just did it a bit too quick, or maybe there's a slight bug. I'm not too sure. But 3 different ghosts will spawn in this room. 1 in the left, middle, and right-hand side, okay? I tried to force it to happen, but for the recording, I wanted to show you the ghosts, but I was running, and they just weren't spawning. And eventually, the other guys, the 3 randomers, just started running off. So, now, do you notice anything about this room as we turn left? The only negative I have for the entire of this dungeon is that they've copied 1 or 2 rooms from previous dungeons. This is literally a copy and paste of Lazarus. It's the exact. They didn't edit it a little bit. Oh, the treasure and stuff. I mean, you spawn a couple of ghosts as soon as you walk in. Always watch out for the golden ghost. Golden ghost? That's the one that does the most damage and does these fire circles. Again, gemstone dust is key. Just pop your gemstone dust if you're getting a little bit worried. You'll get 2 more ghosts here spawn on the corner. Again, if you don't recognize this room from Lazarus, you've never played this game before. The second we did this in the PTR, I was like, oh, well, they've copied this from. But again, that's the only thing I'll knock NewWorld for when it comes to this dungeon. In terms of like, I'm gonna fix it and patch it up a little bit, you know, make it a little better. But the only thing I'd say is don't copy rooms. It's lazy, boring, you know. Again, several ghosts spawn in here. If you're one of the DPS players or the healer, stay as far back as you can. You don't want to get engulfed in all of the AoE that's about to happen. As a tank, you know, soak it all up. Do as much damage as you possibly can to help them out. I think I nearly died here at one point, but we got some clutch heals. DPS players, this is best when you got a mage as well, because the mage can stand there, the healer can just do range damage. And essentially, they clump up all their damage. You've got a couple of AoE circles. They'll have a white one, which I think slows you down and does a bit of damage, and the red one, which is like a fiery one. Just basically, don't stand in it. If they spawn all the circles in one big go, in terms of mechanics, you guys know what to do. Just back out of them and just let the tank take it. Hit them with as much range as you possibly can. Now, this next little bit is something different. I don't think they've ever done this in a dungeon before. So, as you can see on the right here, there's like a shrine. On the left, there's also a kind of shrine. Once you kill these 4 mobs here, best thing to do is try and pull them all to the gunner again, because he's the only range one. So grab all the aggro, try and take him to the gunner if you can. That'll be the most efficient way of doing it. But yes, basically, in order to unlock this door behind us, it's no Azoth staff like it used to be in like some of the older dungeons like Starstone and Amrine. There's actually like a little feature in this game. I don't know why they've added this. If you're in a mutation and you've ever done this with players who just don't know the mechanic, you'll know how frustrating it is. But kill the mobs, go and speak to Ty. Make sure you speak, and then you'll unlock this little shrine here, Nareed's offering. Now, once you pick this up, a bunch of lightning will go from, if you want to call it, south to north in that up and down direction. You need to go around this right hand side. You need to jump. Jumping is the best way to do it. And then once you get over to the offering shrine, hold E and put that in there. If the lightning touches you, you drop your offering that you picked up, and you have to do it again. Now, you need to do this 3 times. And you'll always be taking damage once you pick up the offering. So basically, the best way to do it is one player picks up the offering, walks around this right-hand curve, if you can see there on the rocks, walks around the right-hand curve. Hopefully, you're about to see me do it again now. And then the healer just heals one person. Now, 1 or 2 people here didn't know what they were doing. They were just running around a bit crazy with these randomers that we brought. And then simply just wait for the lightning to go. Once it's gone, jump on the offering, a little bit of range. You don't have to jump straight on it. That unlocks the door, so you need to do that 3 times. Best to just do it 1, 1, and 1. Once one person is nearly at the offering to hand it in, another person can already pick it up, but that means the heal's got to heal 2 people at the same time. So just beware. Now we're coming towards the end of this dungeon now. We've got a couple of trash mobs to kill as we work our way to the final boss. So we've got a couple of ghosts, tendrils, and alligators to kill, but there's only not much more now before we get to this final boss. Oh, there's the 3rd piece of paper on the left hand side. Good job, I just noticed that. There you go. If you picked up the quest for the first time and you need all 3 pieces of lore, here's your 3 pieces. We've shouted those out during this dungeon. This is the moment where I realized I wasn't eating my carrot cake. I wasn't 300 strength through this whole dungeon until now. I'm like, oh my god. And I got knocked down by the tendrils anyway because they did big hits. But and I didn't have my crit ready. So yeah, for this entire dungeon, I think I went in with what, 274 strength and something daft like, I don't know, 190 something on, do you know what I mean? But it was full 625 gear, but it was all corruption ward gear. I didn't even wear the lost ward gear, mainly because I've not bothered sharding it up yet. I've got like 300,000 shards I need to spend on the lost gear for my tanking setup, but we've not done that yet. So another lost ghost here to kill. Again, if you're ever worried, I know I keep repeating myself, but I try and give as much information in these ultimate guide videos as I can. If you're ever worried when you're fighting these ghosts, gemstone dust, because they basically do all magical attacks, and the gemstone dust will help reduce the first couple of hits that you receive. There we go. Looking through all these again. Angry Earth again. All your slash damage is good. Your fire damage should be good. And we want to discuss this final boss when we get there, actually, because there's a lot of misconceptions about this final boss. We're almost there. We've got 2 or 3 more mobs to kill. Now, in this room, you have Tendril, Alligator, and another Alligator slightly further back. If you're a bit worried that you can't kill all 3, maybe the DPS isn't the greatest, or the heals or the tank isn't the greatest, just take 2. Okay, take the first Alligator and the Tendril. My opinion would be DPS all on the Tendril for the heavy attacks. Let the tank take the Alligator, and then pull them in. If you're happy with your DPS, do what we've just done. Pull all 3 in at the same time. Take out the Tendril. Take out the 2 Alligators. Definitely the best thing to do there. And I think we got 1 or 2 mobs, I think. 1 or 2 mobs. Oh, no, we're done. Actually, I think sometimes there's a Tendril there. Right. Big thing. Again, at the time of recording this video, on the 15th of August, okay, there is a small bug with this final boss where if you run across this bridge way too fast, it won't actually spawn. As soon as you've seen all the whirliness and the boss spawn in that background, you'll be absolutely fine to enter the dungeon. Make sure you all go in together, or else you'll be locked out. Another obvious thing. And one more thing to mention about this final boss before we go into it. At the time of this recording, on the 15th of August, this boss does rend damage when you get caught in the swirls. You'll see a big rend ticker at the bottom where all the debuffs are, or your buffs. Now, at the time of this video, they've removed the rend damage for reasons I'm not 100% sure on. So there is no rend damage on this final boss at the moment, right? So this would normally be ever so slightly harder than what we'll show you on the screen now. When you get caught in the tornadoes and stuff that the boss does, you'll receive rend damage, right? So just bear that in mind for any future fights. If you're watching this video 2 weeks after, 3 weeks after, a month after, if they ever add that rend back in, you'll get a lot of rend damage when you get stuck in there. Now, one thing I want to discuss about this fight, because it's a little bit long, is everybody keeps calling this an Angry Earth mob. It looks like an Angry Earth mob, and it dropped Dryad Bark, I believe, as one of its drops. So everyone's like, it's Angry Earth, it's Angry Earth. When you get to the final boss, switch to your fire weapons, switch to your slash weapons, you know what I mean? Yeah, but if you were fighting in Genesis. Now, I tested this, and I can't replicate this, basically. So, with my sword and shield, my sword is obviously slash damage, which should be one of the best you can do against Angry Earth. Yeah, I'm doing white numbers for my normal damage when I'm not crit. What that means is you're just doing neutral damage when it's white. When your numbers are slightly yellow, like you can see there, because I just used the shield bash, which is strike. When it's slightly yellow, that means it's more effective. So your strike weapons are still just as effective, which is what you should be doing against Lost anyway. Your warhammers or your shield skills, they are more effective than your slash weapons. Now, I personally not tested fire damage and ice damage, but from what I've been told, nothing really changes. You know what I mean? And there's no way to like officially look up. It doesn't say above a head fire resistant, ice resistant specifically. But a lot of people like to try and switch to Angry Earth Bane weapons at the start of this fight, and they change to Angry Earth coatings on the weapons, and I'm going to tell you now, from the test that I'm showing you on the screen, you can look at the damage numbers. Slash damage does not do any more damage than strike damage, which basically means don't switch from your Lost Bane weapons, your strike weapons, to Angry Earth Bane. Don't swap, right? So far, there is no need from what I'm showing you here. Now, if somebody in the comment section down below, or you want to jump into my Twitch stream or whatever and show me some other evidence, there are none. When I do a strike damage, yellow numbers. As you can see, yellow numbers, unless you're critting. When I go back to slash damage, it's all white numbers, which means you're not doing any extra damage. You're just doing neutral. So there's that. Now, in terms of the fight in general, the fight is, because we'll waffled on a bit too much there, the fight is a lot like Siren. All the melee attacks are all the exact same as the Siren arena. What the boss tends to add, as you can see all around, is these huge tornadoes. That's in phase 2. So in the first phase, the mob will do some tornado attacks just like this that you're seeing now. Basically, anyway, simple as that. Try not to get hit by the little swirls that come out from north, south, east, and west. So just try and stay diagonal to the boss. Just like in Siren Arena, she'll chuck out these circles. And you see there, the lightning circles on the left-hand side. Obvious one again, don't stand in those. If you're a tank, try and position yourself in between them or away from them. Don't go in the tornadoes. That's another one. The tornadoes swirl you up and do a bunch of damage. Would do rend damage if they ever add that back in. The only thing I can't show you on this video. And then other than that, the mechanics aren't too crazy. Do you know what I mean? It's quite simple. When the mob is in, the boss is in that whirlwind mode, don't go near it. When the boss runs to the very, very center, which is near the start of the fight, don't go near it. Just basically allow the tank to go first, take a couple of hits, and if she's not doing any crazy mechanics, everybody else can pile in. Just give that tank a couple of seconds each time. And there you go. That's the best way I can describe on the ultimate guide this dungeon. I'm just gonna, I think, I'll pause it in a second. Yeah, victory. There we go. We'll pause it on there. But essentially, that's the final boss fight. I'd like to go into more detail, but the problem is I've been waiting a week or two now, and this rend damage has been removed, so I can't show you that. They possibly might add it. The only thing to take away from this video is don't switch to your Angry Earth gear, your Angry Earth Ward, your Angry... Just, I don't see the point. Do you know what I mean? I've done this dungeon all the way up until Mutation 10 as well. And I've never needed any Lost gear, any Angry Earth gear. I've been going in with Corrupted gear because it's actually a really easy dungeon. I enjoy this dungeon. It's fun. On average, you should be completing it in about 25 minutes. 30 minutes if it's a slow run, or a bit of a slow run. So it's not a long dungeon. It's not like Tempest where it's like 45 minutes or sometimes a bit longer. There's 2 big boss fights similar to Tempest. Oh no, actually, I'd say Tempest has got more than 2. But all in all, it's quite a good dungeon. You know what I mean? I don't want to give it like a score out of 10. Maybe like an 8 if everything worked, like this little bit of rend thing on the final boss. But one thing I really want to take away from this dungeon is, like, I'm glad that NewWorld are adding a lot more mechanics in the actual fights themselves, you know, in the boss fights themselves. Because too many, like Lazarus and stuff like that, you're basically just standing there and hitting them. It's good to see 6, 7, 8 different little mini bits of damage, different types of damage, different mechanics, 1 or 2 bits of copy and paste, like from Siren, like we've said about the lightning circle and the melee attacks that this boss does. But in general, adding a lot more variability. So if anybody's been playing this game, or not played this game, sorry, in a long time, and has looked at this and gone, oh, same mechanics, blah, 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 you can't. NewWorld are listening to the players. They are listening to all the people who still play this game, all 10 of us. And, you know, they are adding really good things to this game. So, yeah, there it is anyway, guys. My personal ultimate guide to the Barnacles of Black Powder, which has been recently added to the game. Hopefully you liked it. All my links are in the description down below. Feel free to massacre this if you think you've spotted bits that I've missed. That actually really helps me. If you spot you spot things that I've missed, comment section down below. And then, like I said, drop a sub on the channel. That'll be amazing if you've liked the video. Drop a like on the video, even better. And then check me out on Twitch. Again, I stream NewWorld. I do OPRs, I do M10s, I do guides, I do build videos, I do everything, right? Everything you can imagine from a NewWorld streamer. So check me out. I stream almost every single day, EU most times, late afternoons most of the times, into the early evenings. So check me out there. All the links are down below. Some will pop up on screen, I'm sure, when I edit the video. If you liked it, you know what to do. Cheers for watching, and I will see you in the next one.